Okay, we don't have a whole lot of time here because World War III has already started. Actually, you know, Pope Francis said this recently. This has been reported. He has said this several times. He has talked about the fact that World War III has already begun as a piecemeal war in various parts of the world. So I'm going to follow up on a couple things that happened this morning already with Father Casey and Deacon Harold. I first want to echo this. Deacon, if you can hear me over there, Deacon Harold, if you can hear me, I got to tell you, brother, same thing has happened to me a couple times where a woman comes up with children in a stroller and says, these kids are here because of you. And everybody around's looking at you, and you think, oh, this doesn't look good. Exactly. Same thing. I mean, and I got to echo what my friend says. You talk about these things, you preach these things, you got to do it with courage. You're going to get flack, you're going to get craziness, you're going to get people upset, but it has to be done. But yeah, things like that have happened. And it's exciting, it's great to hear. There are also places that never want you to come back. As far as I know, there are, I think, 5 dioceses in the country I'm told I'm not allowed to speak in again, you know, because of certain things that you say that irritate people because you're talking about the truth. It has to be done, though. So I want to echo what Deacon Harold said because it's absolutely true. We got to be courageous. It can't just stay here. Events like this, guys, are a nice pat on the back to each other. We're safe. We can all stand and pray. We can all agree, for the most part, with what's going on here. We all feel good about all that. We got confessions going in the back. We got a couple confessionals. Gentlemen, make use of that. Let's see smoke coming out of those confessionals as we're burning the sin off our souls by the grace of God. We can all feel good about that. But when we leave here at the end of this day, this ends, 4 o'clock or so, we're going to walk out of here. We're going to get in the car. Do you know how fast all of this can be lost? Like that. Turn on the radio, go right back to the sports. Go home, turn on the TV, go right back to the normal way of life. Events like this cannot just inspire us or motivate us. They must move us, and then we have to make a decision. Motivation and inspiration are great. They have their place. But as an old Navy SEAL said one time, motivation and inspiration are like emotion. It comes and it goes. It can light things on fire. But he says, that's not what I want in the foxhole with me in the battle. I want discipline in the foxhole. I want discipline. The discipline of the day-to-day grind. I get up in the morning, and gentlemen, this is my habit. When I go to bed at night, I kiss my scapular. I tell my Blessed Mother good night. I say, I hope I fought well for you today. Give me a good night's rest if it be the will of God. I wake up in the morning, let me fight for you again tomorrow. When I wake up in the morning, I try to make the first thing I do, kiss the scapular. Not only are there a partial indulgence for kissing a scapular with sincerity as an expression of reverence to a sacramental, but it's this expression of what I want in my heart to be given to my Blessed Mother for the sake of the battle that we're all in. Every night, every morning, let's commit to that fight. My mom used to say, and I have to speak about my mother for a moment because my mother just passed away a week ago today. We just had the funeral for my mother on Wednesday, and then I got on a plane Thursday and flew out here. My mother is the reason primarily that I have my faith. My mother, when she died, she's this frail little, she'd probably gotten about 4'10", 4'11". She was getting smaller, she was getting older, she had cancer. And she was literally 91, 92 pounds when she died. But she had a heart of gold. And she was a woman who, no matter what, she struggled with everything from scrupulosity to guilt because my father was an alcoholic. My father passed away 25 years ago from a massive heart attack because he was an alcoholic. I didn't learn any of my faith primarily from my father. I have nothing against my father. My father was a really good man until he started to drink. When the drinking took over, it ruined him. He lost that battle. But we prayed and begged God. We begged the Blessed Mother that even though he had turned away from many good things, he even stopped going to church. He said, please don't let him die alone. Please let the Lord be with him. And the last person by his side before he took his final breath was a priest giving him last rites. It's the grace of God. That's faith in action. That's movement. And some of that had to do with a friendship that I had with this priest. And we called him last minute, knowing he might be able to help out. And he rushed right over because he was my friend. And that worked out, thanks be to God. But my mother, even in the midst of that and having lived through that, and she was raised by a father who was an alcoholic. She married a man who became an alcoholic. She never lost her faith. She struggled with guilt. She struggled with scrupulosity. Okay, and scrupulosity is where you just don't feel like you're worthy to go to the Lord. You don't feel like you're worthy to go to communion. It's a really rough life to have. All right, it's a tough battle. But she always said things like this to me: Doug, no matter what, you can always go to a priest. You can always go to confession. Doug, no matter what, you always turn to the Blessed Mother. Doug, no matter what, I don't care if you're a rocket scientist, which I will never be, or a garbage man, which I have done. She says, I don't care what you are, I want you to be a good man who loves God and does the best you can. And she also told me this growing up. She said, Doug, every morning, wake up, and every night before you go to bed, say 3 Hail Marys and do 10 push-ups. Take care of the body and the soul. And so, yeah, now I pray the daily rosary. Been doing that for years, thanks be to God, by the impression and impact of my mother, and I still work out. Right? And I hit you with some of that last night, and we are going to do some today in a little while. I don't know if I'm going to do it in this talk, probably the next talk this afternoon after lunch, get some food in you. We're going to do a little drill, a little 4-minute workout drill. I'm going to need some guys to be thinking about it. Some of you out there thinking, I'm not working out. And some of you thinking, yeah, I want to do this, all right? That's cool. I want to get some guys up. We're going to do a little 4-minute drill. And the reason I want to do it is I want to show you that there's no excuse not to take these steps to take care of yourself. Because just like I said last night, we fill in the blank why I don't have time to pray the rosaries because I'm too tired or too busy. And the same reason people who don't exercise. I don't take care of my body like I don't take care of my soul because I'm too tired or I'm too busy. You know what? That's a garbage excuse. Some people say, well, I'm injured and I have sickness or this or that. It's like, so do I. I told you all last night. I got the shoulder problems that haven't completely healed. You know what? They're probably always going to be there. I train around them, and you know what? They feel better when I train them. I got the torn meniscus, the surgery that was done. You know, not every now and then it acts up. You know, sometimes it's the climate, the weather, whatever. But you know what? I work around it. I train what I can around it so I can still be mobile. And here's what I didn't tell you. 7 years ago, I was diagnosed with something called ulcerative colitis. Some of you know what that is? It's in the department of Crohn's disease. It's a digestive tract disease, autoimmune digestive tract disease. It's not contagious. Okay, some say it's genetic. Some will say that it's environmental. In my case, I think it was particularly because of some horrible antibiotics I was given when I was about 15 or 16, and then again, fast forward to when I had an injury on my hand due to some work I was doing in my yard, and the doctor shoved antibiotics in me and a tetanus shot and the whole 9 yards, and about 8 weeks later, boom, I'm sick as a dog, and within about 8 months, I lost 50 pounds. It was bad. All right, then I had a major relapse last December, and in 1 week, I lost 25 pounds. I was in bed for 5 weeks. I mean, it's a pretty brutal problem when it hits you hard, okay? And it's tough. And so my diet is incredibly strict most of the time. Has to be very, very strict most of the time. So my energy level, because it's an autoimmune issue, is up and down sometimes. So there are times when I feel like I could just lay down and crash. Like right now, I'm out. I can't always do that. You see me as this intense guy who's bouncing around the stage all the time. Well, this isn't sometimes because of the health. This is because of what I'm excited about, and that's the faith. That's why I'm intense. But if I'm not doing this, I just as soon go be kind of introverted, hang out with my family, get my workouts in, whatever, go to sleep, you know, do my stuff at home. But the reason I bring it up is this. I understand the daily grind, the daily battle, and the need for discipline in order to overcome that. I still need to take care of myself spiritually and physically so that I can be the best complete man I can be to fulfill the tasks that God has given me as a husband, as a father, as a worker, as a brother, whatever it is. And I can't make excuses. So whether I've got a sickness, which I have, and it's a rough one, or whether I've got the knee surgery, the bad shoulders, the pinched nerve in the back that pops up, you know, from hanging sheetrock over the years, whatever it is, I can't make excuses. I still got to knock out the workouts like I still got to knock out the prayer. Tired, busy, sick, injured, tough. I'm doing it anyway. Isn't that what we men always appreciate about each other? Isn't that what we like? The guy out there on the football field, look at him out there playing. He's got a broken leg, and he's still playing. Look, that guy's unconscious. He's still playing. How's he doing that? I don't know, but it's amazing. Son, get in here. You see that? Now that's commitment right there. The guy's dead, but he's still playing. How's he doing that? It's amazing how we look at these things, but when it comes to matters of faith or just taking care of ourselves, maintaining the temple of the Holy Spirit, we find every reason under the sun not to do it. I just got to say, you know what, gentlemen, and I'm going to hammer this again in the next talk as well, because like I said last night, some things we have to repeat over and over so we can really process it. So when you leave here, certain things Deacon Harold said, you're going to leave here and you're going to be stuck with certain things he said. Certain things Father Casey said, you'll be stuck with that. Certain things I say, you'll be stuck with that. I want it to be a couple of things. One, you are physical and you are spiritual. And to be the complete man, We need to train and prepare physically and spiritually in every way possible to be ready for anything God may call us to or anything he may allow to come in our lives. That being said, let's look back at some of the things Father Casey said. He brought up a beautiful timeline of Fatima. Awesome timeline of Fatima, point out some key things. And one of the key things that he brought up was July 13th, 1917, when our Blessed Mother said that there would be a second world war if we didn't stop offending God. Something key about that, the spiritual response we needed to have in order to avoid a second world war. But notice what that entailed. The spiritual response we didn't do complete enough. And I'll comment on one other thing. And Father Casey would probably echo this as well. All the comments and questions, I've heard it over the years because I've given a lot of talks on Fatima, as has Father Casey. And you'll hear people constantly say, do you think the consecration was made? And I love Father's story about the priest now that he knows who said that John Paul II turned and said, how many times must I do it? Okay, great point. But the question I have is, did we all respond to everything else the Blessed Mother said? A lot of people put the pressure on whether or not the consecration of Russia was made. I want to put the pressure on us. Because notice, she didn't say you will have a second world war only if bishops and priests do the right thing, or if they don't do the right thing, excuse me. She said, unless you all stop offending God. So my question is, what have we all done to be faithful to the messages of Fatima? Well, let's fast forward because she didn't stop there. She didn't stop there. Let's fast forward a couple other major apparitions that took place in this time. I mentioned last night that I have a table back there with CDs and DVDs on it, right? Got to keep pushing it. Hey, I tell you, Deacon Harold's next to me and the bookstore people, this is how a lot of us make our living in addition to this work. So when you do this, not only do you get great materials to share with others and benefit hopefully your own lives, but you help continue the ministry work that we all do. So I want to encourage you, please, and help us out by contributing to the cause and getting some great ammunition to take with you into this battle. I have a DVD. It's called Stay on Mission. It's the mission that God has given us and the mission that the Blessed Mother constantly reminds us of. Stay on mission, Marian apparitions of our time. There are 5 major apparitions on here in the last 100 years that I address, all of them approved by Holy Mother Church, worthy of devotion. The first one, Father thoroughly covered, and that's Fatima. The second one is Our Lady of America. Yeah, a lot of people don't know. We have an approved apparition in America that happened in the late 50s, early 60s, been approved by the church. In fact, His Eminence, Cardinal Raymond Burke, is the one that thoroughly investigated it and gave the final approval of it. And I talked to him personally when he was out here in Pendleton, Oregon, at a men's conference several years ago. And I asked him about it off camera, behind the scenes. What do you think about that? And he said, Doug, it's all legitimate. It's all solid. It's all of spiritual origin. There's no doubt about it. Well, her warnings in there were pretty serious about, for America, we are a beacon of hope for the world. I'm paraphrasing here. But if we don't respond to that, there will be consequences. And she also said that America is a source to help the world understand, get this, the importance of the virtue of purity. Ouch. Yeah, that was back in the 50s. Look what's happened since then. Was that not a warning before the 60s, the sexual revolution, and the growth of the porn industry and the contraceptive industry and so much that has come out of America and impacted the whole world? So our Blessed Mother warned us when she came in the late 50s and early 60s as Our Lady of America. Fast forward, 1973. Now I'm going to hit some of these fast, a couple I'll focus a little more on. 1973, Akita, Japan. The Blessed Mother appears to a sister, Agnes Sasagawa. She appears to her 3 times. She appears to Sister Agnes, and she says things such as, I'll paraphrase a bit here, you need to pray very much the prayers of the rosary. You need to pray very much the prayers of the rosary. I always keep mine right here, okay? Like I said to you last night, I got one, I got one in my Jeep at home, I got one in my rental car, everywhere I travel, I keep one in my pocket, I keep one by my bedside, I got a couple at my desk. She says, pray very much the prayers of the rosary for your priests, cardinals, and the Pope. Priests, bishops, and the Pope. She spoke of how the enemy would make a particularly concerted effort to destroy the consecrated souls, religious and priest. Destroy consecrated souls. This was 73. She talked about this. In the second apparition, I'm going backwards here because that was really in the third apparition. In the second apparition, she said this. She said, the Heavenly Father is preparing a great chastisement for the world so that mankind will know His wrath, His anger. That's a scary statement. Why would she say this to us? Again, like I said last night about the honey vinegar, that's not a lot of honey, sweetheart, right? But why does she bring it to us this way? Because it is that critical. We're at that hour. We're at the 11th hour, guys. We're at the doorstep of this. We're seeing it unfold. The last apparition in Akita, Japan took place on October 13th. Coincidental that it's the final apparition of Fatima where the sun spun in the sky? Is that coincidental? I just can't imagine that God, after these moments happen, would pull back after that apparition, turn to his mother and say, wait a minute, what day did we do the miracle of the sun? Is that the same? Peter, look that up. I'm on it. Good thing we have the internet now. Good thing Al Gore invented it. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that was the same day, Lord. Oh, I can't believe we did that, Mother, No. Why on the 13th of October does the Blessed Mother tell Sister Sasagawa what I'm about to tell you? Why on that particular day? Because Fatima is not over with. The warnings of Fatima are not done. We're living in it right now. And as St. John Paul II said, they're more significant for us now than when they happened. So this is what she said, October 13th. If man does not repent, change his life, fire will fall from the sky, and a great multitude of the world, of mankind, will be annihilated. The good will die with the evil. Even priests will die. It will be worse than the great deluge, the flood. How could that be? Well, if you think about it, the flood took time. You have time to repent. Waters are rising. Hey, it's getting wet out here. We should do something. Well, waters aren't stopping. We should do something. We move to high ground. You get to the highest ground. Okay, I don't think this is going to stop. I think we're going down. But you have time to repent, right? Fire falling from the sky could be much more abrupt. And maybe we won't have the time. Maybe that's what she means. In fact, what she says at the end of this particular message alludes to that. She says, it will be worse than the great deluge. She says, those who are living after this happens will envy those who are dead. So for those of us who think, anybody here a prepper? Okay, I am. Anybody else a prepper? Admit it if you are. Food, water, ammo. Okay? Now you could be the crazy prepper that's going to run off into the wilderness because you got stuff stashed in tubs buried in the ground and you're just going to hunker down on your own and survive. That's not a Catholic prepper. Catholic prepper says, I'm going to get ready, and if something happens, I'm going to be ready to help my neighbors. I'm going to be ready to evangelize through physical means, corporal works of mercy. Okay? That's a Catholic prepper, in my opinion, right? That's the right way to do it. Okay? That's what we should be thinking about. But think about this. There are a lot of guys out there thinking, oh, I'm going to survive when everything falls apart. I'm going to be there to rebuild society. Yeah, well, Blessed Mother says, October 13, 1973, if you're living after this, you're going to envy those that are dead. That's how bad it's going to be. So that's something we got to be taking seriously because the Blessed Mother doesn't lie. Just like in Fatima, she didn't lie when she said there'll be a second world war, and there was. She said it'd be worse than the first. The first war took about 22 to 25 million lives. The second war took 70 million, roughly. She doesn't mince words, and she doesn't make stuff up, and she doesn't lie. So when she says you're going to envy those who have died, that's a tough thing to think about. At the end of that apparition, she said this. She said, the cause of my great sadness is the loss of so many souls. Souls. Everything always goes back to souls with her. But she tells us this is going to happen if we don't repent. Fast forward, 1980, Cuapa, Nicaragua. Now, the DVD that I have, on that table back there where the DVDs and CDs are, yeah. The DVD that I have, Stay on Mission, goes into much more detail. It's an hour-long talk. It's a talk I gave at a men's conference about 6-7 years ago. And it goes into more detail. You'll see images of some of these people. You'll see the images of the visionaries and some of these events that took place that we have in there. We included that in there. But what we see here is our Blessed Mother warning us, telling us the seriousness of these times. The cause of my great sadness is the loss of so many souls. This happens October 13th. Fast forward to Cuapa, Nicaragua. A lot of people have never heard of the Blessed Mother appearing in Cuapa, Nicaragua. In Cuapa, Nicaragua in 1980, she appeared to a man named Bernardo Martinez. Eventually, he became a priest after all of this happened. At the time, though, when she appeared to him, small village, small town area, he was the sacristan. He was taking care of the church, and he was involved in leading the rosary group. Well, a couple of nights in a row after the ladies were done at the church, they left the lights on. So he went over and shut the lights off. Then a third time this happened, And he was a little frustrated by this, so he went over to shut the lights off, but the lights weren't on this time. What it was a beautiful statue of the Blessed Mother in the church that was illuminated. It was lit up. It was the first appearance, first apparition of Our Lady to Bernardo Martinez. So what happens eventually, she appears several more times, and one of the final apparitions occurred on October? Exactly. On October 13th, she appeared to Bernardo Martinez, eventually Father Bernardo, and she said this to him: if you, the people, us, continue to reject my call for conversion, you will hasten the arrival of a third world war. Now, experts who've studied this have said clearly she's saying that there's a third world war coming. But you will hasten it. You will speed it up. You'll hasten the arrival of it if you continue to reject my call for conversion. She's very serious about this. She doesn't lie. Now, when John Paul II in 1976 was speaking to the bishops before he became the Pope, he said to bishops in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in America here, he said to the bishops in Philadelphia, he said, we have entered the final conflict between good and evil, between the church and the anti-church, between the gospel and the anti-gospel. And the whole wide Christian community does not grasp or fully understand what this is, but God has called us to this, and we must take up this challenge with courage. He goes on to say that there is something coming of chastising nature, you could say, something coming that we cannot avoid. And we will be called to even lay our lives down for our faith, he says. But he makes it clear, we cannot avoid this, but we can alleviate it through prayer and sacrifice. So John Paul II in 76, right after Akita in 73, right before Quapa in 1980, all in this time period, which is the time period of most of us. I graduated in 1983 from high school. I mean, this was a time period where we have all been alive. These events have happening. These prophetic voices, as Father Casey mentioned, the prophetess, our Blessed Mother. When God sends his mother, many saints have said in the past, you know that's it. You don't go to another level except God himself. We could also tie in St. Faustina, what our Lord through St. Faustina said to the world. She's the what? The apostle of mercy, we hear. The Divine Mercy Chaplet. And he speaks of very important points. One, I come as divine mercy. And many people stop there with it. The divine mercy is about the mercy of God. Trust in the mercy. Yes, beautiful, wonderful. I love it. Yes, I pray the chaplet too. It's important. It's incredible to spread this devotion. But notice what else he says. Those who do not go through my door of mercy must go through my door of judgment. Now I come as divine mercy. The time will come when I come as divine judgment, divine judge. Oh, how terrible, he says, the words of our Lord through Faustina, is the day of my judgment. So this was in the 1930s that she was given these great messages from our Lord to give to the world for us to embrace. John Paul II then, a very key player in this, another prophet if you ask me, who canonizes St. Faustina, promotes the divine mercy message everywhere while he was alive. He also tells us through this point made in 1976 of the seriousness of our times and that there is something coming. Now the big thing here is, well, how do we respond? Are we supposed to be afraid of these things? Well, no, but we're supposed to wake up to them. I say this, if you knew your house was going to break out in a fire sooner or later, you just knew it was coming and you couldn't avoid the fire, would you be smart and think, smoke detectors, make sure they work. Change the batteries, because when that fire breaks out, I want to get my family out. And you know what else I'm going to bring into my house if there's going to be a fire? What would you prepare with? Fire extinguishers, smoke detectors, fire extinguishers, and a plan of exit for your family. You teach them how to get out a window if they have to under a rooftop if they're on the second floor. Or you get one of those ladders that push the window out, hook it on, drop it down the ladder. I've done that. My boys in the second floor room, there's no way to get down to a rooftop. So the ladder's right there in the closet. And I regularly tell them, make sure the path is clear. Make sure you don't got stuff buried on top of it there. Make sure you can get to it. And then I run little drills with them once in a while. Wake them up at 2 a.m. Fire, fire, get out of the room. You think I'm kidding, don't you? Yeah, my kids walk around the house like this, waiting for dad to drop a bomb on him or something. Yeah, well, we've done things like that though. I do the fire extinguisher drill all the time. Kids, fire extinguishers, go get them. And I time them, 19 seconds. They got to collect all of them. We have like 38 of them. Like 4 in each room. Then we have like 6. basement, garage, upstairs, downstairs, the office, you get a few of them, The point I'm getting at is if you knew your house was going to catch on fire and you were told you would not be able to avoid it, you would prepare for that fire so you could save lives, right? The Blessed Mother is saying World War III, John Paul II is saying something coming you can't avoid but you can alleviate. We would think to ourselves, what do we do then to prepare for it? And how do we respond to it? I'm all about train and prepare, train and prepare. I got a page on my website. My website's battlereadystrong.com. Got cards on my table back there where the CDs and DVDs are. Battlereadystrong.com, and on there I have a page called Train and Prepare. Because I think we are foolish to not be preparing and training constantly for anything and everything that we know the world is going to throw at us, but especially spiritually. Everything that Deacon Harold said up here about the Mass, why would we not look at that and say, yes, feed me. I want to dive into this. I want to be consumed by it. I want to consume it. This is the holy sacrifice of the Mass, the source and summit of our faith. Why would we not just eat that up, devour that? Largely because we don't grasp fully the importance of it. Why the confessional should be smoking back there. There's an open door, by the way, guys. Just all right. I went this morning. Think about this, gentlemen. If we really, truly appreciated the importance of mercy, we'd be going to that confessional every week or two. They say John Paul II went every day to confession because he was really bad. He had a lot of problems. He had a gambling addiction, they say. I'm kidding. You're like, didn't you record that, did you? We got to edit that one out. No, I'm kidding about that. The point is, he went because he knew. It's like the rosary. Why wouldn't we pray the rosary every day? Okay, it's something, we got to change our mindset. My buddy Chuck, my 30-year-old Navy friend, Chuckbo, talked about him last night. Chuckbo says we have to learn to operationalize our faith. In other words, let's put it into operation. How are we operationalizing our faith? How are we taking it and practicing it spiritually and physically in all the ways that we should be? So we have all these warnings from our Blessed Mother. Akita, Cuapa, Nicaragua, 1980. October 13th. You will hasten the arrival of a third world war, following up on Akita. John Paul II, 76. You know what Pope Benedict said in a letter that he wrote, I think it was 2009, he wrote a letter explaining why he lifted the excommunication of 4 Lefebvre bishops. In the letter, he said something very, very powerful, I thought. And I don't know, you read through the letters of the popes and you think, oh, wow, that's a lot there. I got to take a nap. This is incredible stuff. I didn't understand half of this. And a lot of it's over my head, I'll admit. But this one struck me. He said this. He said the role of Peter, the Pope, is to unify, to bring the flock together. And then he went on to say this. The problem in our world today. Anybody remember the old commercial when E.F. Hutton talks? People, listen. When the Pope speaks, we should be listening. In my opinion, especially Benedict and John Paul II, because of the times and such. Francis confuses me. I love the Holy Father. I pray for the office, but I'm confused. But I'm going to go back to Pope Benedict for right now. Pope Benedict said, the problem in our world today, the problem, is that the presence of God is disappearing from the human horizon. Now, let that just kind of float right over your head, or let it hit you, penetrate deep into the heart and think, whoa, that's serious. What happens if the presence of the Father disappears from the home? Chaos. In fact, 90% of people that are incarcerated in prison come from single-parent homes where dad is not there. When dad is not around, when the presence of the Father is not there, you have chaos in the family. So the presence of God the Father is disappearing from the human horizon. That only means we're going to fall into chaos. And he goes on to say that with the diminishing of the light, which is Christ, so he's saying that it's diminishing. With the diminishing of the light, which is Christ, man is responding with more destructive effects. And we're seeing it physically with war, with everything from ISIS to the rallies in the streets to, how about this currently? How often do we go a day, 2 days, 3 days before we hear something in the mainstream media where someone's calling for the assassination of the president? This is becoming so commonplace now. And now this recent congresswoman saying that only white supremacists are in the White House now. And this stuff is out there, and what's our response to it? Oh, there's something else. We're used to it. The destruction of dignity, the destruction of patriotism, the destruction of the family, the destruction of life, the destruction of purity. We're seeing it everywhere. Pornography, epidemic proportions. We know that there's not a man in this room that doesn't understand the temptations when it comes to sins of the flesh. We all understand it. This destruction is growing and growing, and we were warned many years ago by His Holiness, by Pope Benedict XVI, Emeritus Benedict, where he said the destruction is the response of this diminishing of the light of Christ because the presence of God is disappearing. You know why the presence of God disappears? Because we're not bringing it to the world. Like Deacon Harold said, very emphatically, which I just wanted to stand. I was pacing back there a little bit because I wanted to come up and say, tag me in, tag me. Because I agree, I think he said, in here it's easy, out there it's hard. That's why the presence of God is disappearing, because we keep the presence confined to little groups like this. We don't take it into the workplace like we should. So right now we're at that tipping point right now, aren't we? We're at that tipping point where we got transgender issues in the workplace and we've got homosexual issues in the workplace. And what do we do? Do we go quiet so we can keep our job, or should we be willing to lose our job for the sake of these things? Well, if we got John Paul II saying back in 76 that we have to even be ready to lay our lives down for our faith, I'm thinking, you know what, we got to be ready to lay our jobs down as well. I know that's easy to say from up here, and you're thinking, well, I got to feed my family. I know the feeling, because even in the Catholic world, you'd think I'd be safe as a Catholic speaker. Okay, there are places when I start talking this way, they don't want me back in. I've had people bring me in for a parish event or a conference, and they'll say this to me before I walk up there. Okay, Doug, we know that you're known for being a little direct. We know that when they hear you say these things, they're never going to let you back in again. I'm standing there, okay? They just get off the plane, I show up, they're telling me this, so then they say this. So because you're never going to be invited back, let them have it. Okay, well. So I call my wife. All right, honey, this is the last time I'll be here, but here we go. Click, all right. And it's not because you're trying to put anybody down. I'm just telling you the facts. Just like Deacon Harold did about the Mass, or Father Casey did about Fatima, the facts are the facts, and the facts are God does not change the truth based on public opinion. All right, just because the majority of people decide that marriage can be this and this, and the majority of people maybe not are deciding it, but will go along with it silently, just because of that, I guess God's going to be good with that. No, that is not the nature of God. It's not the nature of the truth that God is. You can't do that. That's like the majority of people saying, we think that gravity now takes things up. It's like, that's insane, but if enough scientists say it, I guess we have to believe it, right? And we are constantly hammered, aren't we? Constantly. And one of the things that we're told over and over and over again is that if you disagree with some of these bizarre ways of thinking out there, you're not just a person of difference of opinion, you're what? You're a hater, you're a bigot, you're discriminatory. That we hear that all the time. That's a communist manifesto approach. That is a mindset that if someone opposes you, you tell them that they're not just difference of opinion, you tell them that they're evil and they're bad for it and they should be taken away for it. Like California now has this new law in elderly homes, if you don't use the correct pronoun for elderly people who want to be a he or a she or an it or whatever the thing is now, then they can fine you up to $1,000 and put you in jail. And what do we think we're giving our young people? These young guys right here, I'm thinking, how old are you right there? 15. What kind of life are we giving this guy? Okay, we men are the movers and the doers. Face it, guys, we're the movers and the doers. Our silence is giving a guy like this, and my son who's 16, and my son who's 9, we're giving them a future of what? Crap. That's what it is. And I'm thinking at the very least, I want to give my sons a future of a fighting spirit, all right? And not one that just goes along quietly, but goes along loudly, reaching out to as many as possible while we can, while we have time, because our Blessed Mother has warned us over and over that this is upon us. It's upon us right now. We've been told in so many ways, by so many voices, even Archbishop Fulton Sheen, venerable, soon to be canonized, they're kind of working out what to do with his body, with his remains, Peoria, where he's from, or New York, where he was Archbishop, but Archbishop Fulton Sheen will be canonized, and he, back in the 30s and 40s, was seeing this coming. He gave a talk in 1942, and I heard this on YouTube, great talk, where he's talking about two wars. He talks about the war and the revolution, actually. The war, World War II. He says, we will win this war. There's no doubt about it. We'll rise up. The American and the Allies forces will come together. We will win the war. But will we win the revolution? And he says, the revolution is this. We are beginning this battle, he says, that's already happened, it's already unfolding, and it's a revolution between the God-made man and the man who makes himself God. And he says, that's the revolution. He says, will we win that? Time will tell. And gentlemen, we've lost a lot of that. We've made ourselves our own gods because when it comes to the basics, one of the best examples of making yourself your own God is the requirements, the basics of even the holy sacrifice of the Mass. Again, Deacon Harold's talk, excellent on that. It's a commandment, the third one. It's a precept of the church. And yet we have 23% of Catholics in America faithfully attending Mass. We have made ourselves a God. And you know what I hear all the time? Well, God understands. I mean, I would go, but my son has a soccer tournament. God understands. He has a commitment to the team. And I just look at them, you're kidding, right? Do you really want me to respond to that? I'm already not allowed back in this place, so okay, here we go. I mean, really? Is this what we're teaching our children? That we're too tired to get up? Or when we go to Mass, look how oftentimes we're dressing for Mass. And I'm not trying to judge people's souls or hearts, but we have to judge actions and behaviors as to whether or not they're moving us the right direction or the wrong direction. That's what you do in a business. That's what you do in a team. That's what you do in any situation to know whether or not you're going the right way. And we're not going the right way. Okay, there are issues out there we don't even talk about anymore. Contraception's one of them. How often do you hear contraception? You know, Deacon Harold talked about the Barney. I mean, I had to laugh because he's absolutely right. You hear the Barney homilies all over the country. Or as my wife would say, it's the cupcake flavor of the week. You know, we get these presentations on the faith as if, you know, everything's cool, God loves you. Like I told you last night about the one deacon down in North Carolina who said, it's a month of October, month of the Rosary. Try to pray the Rosary at least once this month, or maybe part of it. Like what part? The sign of the cross? I mean, how far are we going to go with this? Don't ask too much of someone. That's like a doctor looking at us saying, you're going to die unless you change your diet, cut out your smoking, and start exercising today. I mean, can I start like in a few weeks? And what do you mean by exercise? Is getting up and walking across the room cover it? The doctor's going to look at you and say, no, you're going to die if you don't change your ways. The Blessed Mother is warning us. We're going to be engaged in a third world war. It's going to be brutal, and it's going to kick our butts unless we engage in this and prepare for it. Last one I'll mention is Rwanda, Africa, Our Lady of Kibeho. Now, there are several children, teenagers to young adults, who claim to receive messages of the Blessed Mother in Rwanda. 3 were approved by the Vatican that they truly did receive supernatural encounters with Mary. 3 of them. The longest was Alphonsine. She's now a nun. She received from 1981 to 1989. Now, there's a lot that was said in Rwanda during these apparitions and these messages to these children, these teenagers, young adults. I'm going to focus on one key thing because it kind of fits, you know, the whole theme of this talk. This one key thing is that 1982, Alphonsine, and another visionary was shown at another time, the same thing. Alphonsine was in the midst of one of her apparitions with Our Lady. They say it was on August 15th, Feast of the Assumption, and they say that there were thousands of people there around her watching this. And there are images and pictures of this. In fact, on the video, the DVD that I have, we have an image of her weeping in the midst of this particular apparition. Mary appears to her, and I've heard that this apparition lasted several hours. And what Our Lady showed her terrified her. She showed her images, as another visionary saw later, images of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of bodies dead in Rwanda. The ground littered with dead corpses. Thousands were thrown in the local river. The river became, as they referred to, a river of blood. It was so thick with dead bodies. She was screaming out, why are they doing this? Why are they chopping? They need to stop this, and words to that effect. After the apparition was over, she explained it to the authorities. Nobody had any idea what it meant. What could this mean? And nobody knew. Some of you know what I'm talking about, because it happened 12 years later. The Rwandan genocide. And for those of us who remember when it was unfolding in the news, it was kind of obscure in the news the way it was being brought about, and what countries were going to get involved and not involved, and the UN was pulled out. They pulled a lot of their troops out. And what happened is in about 3 months' time, almost 3 months, starting April 7th, 1994, and for 3 months, a civil war broke out on a scale that modern civilization has never seen. And in about 3 months' time, nearly 1 million, they say 800,000 to 1 million. And you know, when it comes to numbers, who knows, but it's in that area. Nearly 1 million people died brutally in this civil war between the Tutsis and the Hutus. You have to understand a couple things about this war. This was a genocidal type of war. This was not military movement necessarily only. This was neighbors killing neighbors. This was family members killing family members, all between Tutsi and Hutu. Priest friend of mine down in Sacramento, Father Bugabo, was there. He was a seminarian. He's a Hutu. He was a seminarian at the time in Rwanda. I've spoken twice at his parish, given battle-ready rallies. And this priest, talk about on fire, he brought me in for a three-night battle-ready rally, and then a follow-up a year later, 2-night battle-ready rally, because he says, this message has got to be brought out. Confessions each night, I mean, he's just on fire. I said, Father, what was it like when this was happening? The only word he kept saying to me was chaos. Chaos, Doug, it was chaos. The brutality was off the charts. Could not believe what was happening. Here's some of the things that happened. Okay? The number one way that they killed people was with machetes, because everybody had machetes over there. You know, they use it to cut through the jungle. They use it for their work in the fields and such. Machetes is the number one way that they killed people. They also choked them out with ropes and just used stones, bludgeoned them with stones. I was giving this talk actually in Virginia about a year or so ago, 2 years ago. And a man in the front row put his hand up and he said, I was there. I said, what do you mean? He says, I was in the Army. I was a 22-year-old sergeant. I had about 20 men under my command. Our job was to take 2 600-gallon water purifiers into the region because people were dying within 3 to 4 days of cholera. People were dying of sickness because everything, it was a grid down on a massive scale situation. Grid down meaning no organization, no safe water to drink, no safe food. It was brutal. It was black market. It was slaughter. It was everywhere. There are bodies in the streets, and you can see this on documentaries. You can see the bodies lying on the street, left there for weeks, months, because nobody wanted to go pick them up. Thousands upon thousands rushed to the local Catholic churches. Some of the priests were complicit and actually gave in and allowed them to be slaughtered anyway. Some weren't. Men tried to fight, but they weren't prepared for it. They weren't prepared for the civil unrest on this scale, and a lot of them didn't know what to do. And they watched the slaughter continue. And in these churches, oftentimes in the Catholic churches where you had 15 to 20,000 people sometimes who would gather to the churches and around the churches, when the bad guys got there, they would line them up and they began to systematically slaughter them, and sometimes on the altar itself. One particular image is there's a wall. It's a brick wall in one of the churches, and they've left it there as a memorial, and it has blood stains all over it. And the reason the bloodstains are there is because they would take babies and they would throw them at this wall repeatedly until they die. They practiced something called genocidal rape. Women always become the target in these things. The genocidal rape, they said, reached the level of up to 500,000 girls and women. They say as young as 8 and as old as 80. No discrimination. They just didn't care. And many of them lived and are still alive. Many have tried to commit suicide, the devastation, the pain that they still live with now. When these events are over, they're never over. It's like World War II, 70 million died. How many millions lived and dealt with the suffering of the war? The same with the genocide, the same with Bosnia. But what's unique about World War II and Rwanda is in both cases, our Blessed Mother prophesied them and said that they would happen if we didn't repent and change our lives. Now, for us in America, we look at those things oftentimes, I believe we think, well, that's way off over there. We got nothing to worry about. I mean, that would never happen here. But look what's happening to our country and how fast it's happening. Now, I'm not a doom and gloomer. If I was a doom and gloomer, I wouldn't be here. I'd be home prepping and get ready to run to the hills. I'm not a doom and gloomer. In fact, I'm very much in the mindset of we fight, we fight, we fight. We use the weapons that God gives us, prayer, sacraments first and foremost. Every time we go to confession or go to Mass or pray a rosary, we are engaging in the battle. Every time we fast, some sort of sacrifice to our bodies, we are engaging in the battle. Every time we involve ourselves in spiritual works of mercy or corporal works of mercy, we're engaging in the battle. And I'm a huge fan of saying engage, 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 and as long as we can. I mean, the words of St. Thomas More come to mind. We must use the wits that God gave us to try to survive and do what we can in society. And if God closes all the doors, then we die like champions. But that's a mindset that must begin in advance before it comes to that point. If we don't think for a moment that this could come to our country, then either we're not paying attention to human nature already and the signs that we're seeing in our own world, in our own country, and we're not listening to the words of the Blessed Mother. Not once does she say, oh, you'll have a war, World War III, but not in America. Oh, this genocide in Rwanda, that's just for other people, but not for America. There's no discrimination when it comes to God's chastisement for mankind if we have not followed what we've been warned against and the changes we need to make. This is it baffles me when I think about, look at what's happening every day in our country. We see this happening. I asked Father Mugabo, I said, what do you think about America these days? He says, we are moving very quickly the same direction Rwanda was, very quickly. Things like this in Rwanda, vandalism, rejection of the faith, and this is kind of an interesting, I had a friend of mine, Drew Mariani from Relevant Radio, I did an interview with him last week and a half or so ago, and we were talking about some of this off camera, and he said, Doug, notice one of the things in Rwanda before everything collapsed was they attacked the statues even. I mean, they reached the point where even images of statues that bothered them, they wanted to destroy or remove. And we think, well, it's just Confederate statues in America. It's not just Confederate statues. It's the mindset that if anything offends me, get it out of my face. It must be bad. And if you offend me, you're a hater. And I won't tolerate that if you're a Christian and you disagree with my transgender or my same-sex marriage and so forth. Now, I'm a big fan of the love part. Yeah, we got to preach with the love, but we got to preach with the truth, and the truth is the love. Now, the next talk I give later this afternoon is going to be about how we, maybe prepare for some of this stuff. That's probably where we'll get the workout in. Okay, we'll do that then. Give you some time to process that part. But let's look at what Our Lady is saying here and really pay close attention to what those warnings mean for us right now. We have been told by our Blessed Mother repeatedly, and a good priest friend of mine says this, the reason she keeps coming over and over and over again is because we're not getting the message. And understand this, she does not do this on her own power. God sends her. God is the one who's sending Mary over and over again to our world to remind us of how serious the times are and the need for us to respond. Now, I think I mentioned this to you last night. I get my talks mixed up. I said this at the Proto Cathedral a couple nights ago, but I think may have said it last night when I talked to His Eminence Cardinal Raymond Burke about Catholicism and manhood in America. And when I did a video with him a couple years ago in Chicago at Mundelein Seminary, and I asked him, I think I told you this? I didn't? I'll say it anyway, just in case. Actually, we're about to do the video, and I said, Your Eminence, I don't know if you want to be in this video with me. There's a lot of people that think I'm a little crazy, a little radical. And he laughed, and he said, well, Doug, if you know how they feel about me in Rome, you might not want to be in the video with me. He's got a good sense of humor. Sharp man. I like that man very much. But I asked him off camera, I said, Your Eminence, what do you think about Catholicism in America when it comes to men? Because he is the spiritual advisor, the spiritual leader of the Holy League, if you didn't know that. Cardinal Raymond Burke is. And I'm very fortunate to be on the advisory board of the Holy League. Father Heilman asked me, he's the one that really initiated this back out of Wisconsin. But I asked him, I said, what do you think about Catholicism and Catholic manhood in America today? And he paused for a second, he put his head down. He's a very thoughtful man. And he said, Doug, if Catholic men fail now, the church in America is done. There's a lot on our shoulders. Because think about this. We as men, first and foremost, the nature of a man is a doer, right? God has designed us as the one that initiates. When it comes to procreation, the wife receives, the man gives, the man initiates. When it comes to pursuing the heart of a woman, the man goes after her. Old saying, why did the man climb the mountain? Because it was there. And no, I think he climbed because there's a woman up there he's trying to show off for, right? We know what it's like to try to win a woman, right? You want a sweet talker. Hey, babe, how you doing? I try that sometimes. My wife just says, we've been married too long, that doesn't work anymore. I give you flowers. I don't want flowers. I want a new ironing board. Okay, you got it. You gotta know how to sweet talk your lady after 27 years of marriage, right? But the point is, men are designed to do this, to go out to conquer. We climb mountains, and after we climb them, we blow holes through them, we lay train tracks, and we move goods and services from one side of the mountain to the other. And when that's not enough, we want to go across the ocean, then we want to go to the bottom of the ocean, then we want to go get to the moon and land on the moon. Men do this. Men dream of these. Women want the moon. Men want to land on it. Right? We do. A buddy of mine years ago used to run a group, what's it called, Project Moses, the big 10 Commandment monuments. You've seen these around the country. All right, they're big, giant monuments, 10 Commandments on one side, Beatitudes on the other normally. And they're big, heavy granite monuments. Some of them come from rock from Mount Sinai, in fact. It's incredible. And this project, there was a wealthy man in Kansas City, I think, who was supporting this. And my friend Joe Worthing was the guy that was sponsoring it. And he'd go around speaking on this, and people would bring these monuments in because as people were trying so hard, and still are, to remove any resemblance of Christianity from our public view, okay, this was a project to try to keep these images in public view. And so he's putting these things out there, and you have to go to him or communicate with him and set it up and get it ordered and get a platform, a stone tablet, or excuse me, like a concrete slab poured and ready. Bring it in, beep, 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 back it up, hurry, beep, beep, lower it down, bring it down, boop, there it is. You seal it in place, and there you have it. At the time I talked with him about 8, 9, 10 years ago, at that time, he said there were 452 of these that had been placed around the country. I said, that's awesome. He says, yeah, do you know how many of these projects were spearheaded by women? I said, how many? He said, 2. The rest were men. Why? Because men are tangible. Men are doers. That's why I think it's easier, you give a man a task, give him a purpose, train him physically, get him engaged, than just sit there sometimes and listen to a Bible study. Bible study is important. Don't get me wrong. We need to be doing that too. We need to be engaged. We need to be out there involved in stuff. And that's a lot of my next talk today is going to be about that. But this illustrates something about us. We men can make things happen. When a barn needs to be raised, you don't call the women. Margaret, call all your friends from the altar guild. We're going to raise a barn. Nothing against the ladies. It's the men. Jim, we need a barn raised. No problem, I'm on it. Bill, Mike, Billy, get the trucks, get the tools, let's go. Men do, men build, men create, men conquer. That's the nature. Women nurture, women heal. Women build. I mean, they build the heart of a man. There's something powerful about that nature of men. So when we hear someone like Cardinal Burke say, if men fail, the church is done in America, what does that mean for us? It means we got a job to do. We got a job to go move, get this out there, take it outside the doors, take it to the world. And how do we do that? Well, it starts by first and foremost, you got to have it in here. You can't give it out there. All right, that's like me. If I'm trying to train my sons in basic self-defense and I have no clue, all right, son, if a bully comes up and pushes you around, I want you to lean in with your head like a chicken and just kind of keep your arms down here. Okay. Really, Dad? Yeah, well, I have no idea what to do, son, so don't ask me. I can't train him how to defend himself if I don't know how to defend myself, right? The point is, how are we going to go out there and train people in the faith if we don't know the faith? So it starts with us being at conferences like this, buying all those materials on Deacon Harold and my table and the other bookstores back here, which is a key part of your holiness. Is that good to say, Deacon? Is that good with that one? Exactly, all right. No, but seriously, look at the bookstore material back here. Look at the bookstore stuff over here. The Rosary Center. I was walking in front of that table, looking at that stuff, saying, man, this table should be clear by the end of the day as much as we've been talking about Mary and the Rosary. All right, because if you don't need it, you know somebody who does. We'll drop $50 for a ticket, right, for a sporting event. You know, we'll put money into traveling halfway across the state for sporting events for our kids. Go buy a book for $15 and learn about the Rosary. Father Calloway's book is over there. Could you hold up Father Calloway's book for a second, please? Father Don Calloway's book. This is like the compendium on the Blessed Mother and the Rosary right there. That is an amazing book on the Rosary. All right? He's only got a few copies there. They should be gone. They should. Okay, I mentioned the scapular last night. If anybody is not enrolled in the brown scapular, this is spiritual armament, gentlemen. This is shield. Okay, we got scapulars back. They're gone? Okay, at least they're gone. Did you guys get them? Is that why they're gone? Yeah. Praise God. Awesome. Then you know what you need to do when you leave the conference? You go to your church. If you got a bookstore at your church. If not, you find the local bookstore that you got in town. You go to your priest and say, I just need a scapular. I got to get my whole family enrolled. What are we waiting for? We've been warned by so many voices. Our Blessed Mother herself, John Paul II, Pope Benedict, St. Faustina, Fulton Sheen. I could spend, I've only got a couple minutes left, I could spend another hour going through some of the voices in the last 100 years that have warned us of the times that we're in and the absolute necessity, the urgency of us to respond. But two things, okay? Two things. Number one, I'll wrap up with this. The warnings are there, they're clear. All right, I've had people ask me all the time. I have a DVD on my table over there called First Line of Defense, and it's a 33-minute DVD for men, and it's a direct DVD. I'm not trying to sound like a salesman up here, but the reason the deacon and myself have these materials is because they're part of the talks that we give, and we think that the information hopefully will be helpful to you and to others out there. So people come up and say, what do you have for men? Women come up all the time, what do you have for my husband? My husband is a good man, but he's too busy or tired. So give him this one, 33 minutes. It's the nature of a man is a fighter. I always say, someone breaks in the house, like I said last night, what would you do? Honey, someone's in the house, go check it out. No, that'd be terrible. If you, honey, I'll be right back, and you go deal with it. All right, that's what it needs to be like. Spiritually and physically, we're the first line of defense. All right, but then there's another DVD, the one on the Marian apparitions. And why do I think this is important? Because if we don't understand the reason, the purpose, the nature of the battle, we're not willing to sign up and engage in the battle. And here's an example. 1941, December 7th, we know what happened, right? Most of us do. Younger guys don't anymore. Young guys don't. If I ask you, 15 years old right there, do you know what happened December 7th, 1941 that's prominent in American history, in the world history? No, not you, not you. I'm talking to him. I like that he can't be contained. I got to get it out. Yeah. Do you know what it is? Yeah, because he said it. Yeah. Did you know that before? You did. All right, good for you, man. A lot of people don't know that, though. A lot of people don't know December 7th, 1941, and they don't know what happened the day after. You know what happened the day after? Guys as young as you guys signed up. The youngest guy that signed up for fighting World War II was 12. 12! You can't get 12 years old on the couch and get the game control out of their hand these days, right? This kid signed up, and by the time he was 14, he actually had done something heroic enough that he was awarded the Medal of Honor at 14. He did something so heroic. I gave a talk a couple weeks ago back in Lincoln, Nebraska, my hometown. 75 guys, nice little parish mission one Saturday morning, gave 2 talks. Right there in the front was this 96-year-old man in a wheelchair. He had been in World War II. His daughter wheeled him in. He just really wanted to come to this talk called Battle Ready, right? So he's right there, and I said, you fought in the war? He said, yes. I said, what were the men like back then? He said, they were different. But that doesn't mean that the nature of the man is different. It means that the way we are responding to it is what's different. God hasn't created men differently now than then. It's us. It's our response to it. We must not be afraid to speak in these ways and raise the bar to what a man is supposed to be, spiritual and physical warrior. And so these guys, even at 12, 13, 14, signed up to go fight in a war because they understood the big picture and the purpose. And when you know what the purpose is and what's at stake, men respond better. So when the Blessed Mother comes and says, this is what is at stake, we men need to say, understood, my 12-star general, as my friend Jesse Romero calls her, just 12-star general, crown of 12 stars from Revelation, right? Yes, ma'am, send me into battle. Where do you want me to go? And she's going to say, you need to be trained. You need to be prepared. That's what the rosary is for. That's what the Mass is for. That's what confession is for. That's what the books and the DVDs and CDs are for, to train us, prepare us, so we know how to engage in this battle. We need to be ready to fight. You don't take, as we talked, Andrew, last night about the weapon. When you join the Marine Corps, did they say, all right, you young recruits, we're going to drop you in a hot landing zone. You're going to fight. Here's your weapon. Sir, I have no idea how to use it. Don't give me no back talk. Get in that chopper. We're dropping you in a fire zone. I don't know how to fire. I don't know how to load the gun. I don't want to hear it. Get in there and fight. You'd be dead in a heartbeat. When you train a soldier, you teach him how to handle the weapons, and you put him through the drills. And we men understand that. If you've got sons and daughters, train them. Train them, train them. Train them in the faith. They need to understand some scripture, basic apologetics at least. They need to understand the rosary. They need to understand the sacraments, which means we have to get it down so we can pass it on to them. Otherwise, I guarantee you, as has been mentioned by the deacon and by Father Casey, they will be slaughtered on this battlefield. And the number one person that God has put in their lives to train them is their father, which is why the statistics make it perfectly clear. When the woman is the spiritual head of the home, the children who remain active in the faith when they become adults is in the area of 30%, give or take, depending on the study. When the husband is the spiritual head of the home, initiating it, loving it, passionate about it, you don't have to be like myself or deacon up here as fathers, that's our nature, that's our personality, but still the passion must be in your heart for it, and that's expressed by the way you live it, which means let them see you in the confession line. Let them see you pray the rosary. Let them know that rosary is part of you and your scapular is on. Let them see this and know this about you. Because the percentage of children that remain active in the faith when the father is the spiritual head of the home is in the area of 90% roughly. Our children are going to get slaughtered and picked off left and right, as we're seeing all around us, if the father is not engaging in the training of them and engaging in his own faith and his own life. So the Blessed Mother has made it clear, gentlemen. Let's recap here and wrap up. She's made it clear. And we've heard the voices of, again, Fulton Sheen to Benedict XVI, to John Paul II, St. Faustina. We've heard these voices constantly remind us in the last 100 years of how serious these times are, even to the point of a threat of World War III. And with all this talk of Kim Jong-un and North Korea and Iran, and you know what people say all the time? It's empty saber rattling. We hear it all the time. Yeah, remember that guy Adolf? It was empty saber rattling until the Blitzkrieg began. And then 6 million Jews died. and 5 million others in the camps, not to mention all the other brutality that took place. Empty saber rattling with Pol Pot in the killing fields of Cambodia. Empty saber rattling in Rwanda. Oh, until 1 million died in 3 months. Empty saber rattling with, we just go down the line. Empty saber rattling, that's a very, very dangerous attitude to have when we know that there is this serious threat right at our doorstep, and the warnings of our Blessed Mother. And much of it rests on us. Remember what John Paul II said. We cannot avoid this, but we can alleviate. We can mitigate. We can lessen the impact and the collateral damage. And yes, it's true. We win in the end. And I rely on that. I rest on that when I get frustrated or discouraged by the things that I see, and I'm sure the deacon does too, because this is tough work, I can tell you. I speak for my brother over here. This is tough work. You leave your family, you go on the road, you preach these messages, and you hope and pray by the grace of God you're doing something right. You know a lot of people don't agree with what you're saying, and you know that you get these tough moments. You put your head on the pillow at night, and you just have to have that faith, that confidence. But man, guys, I've been doing this 27 years. There are many times I go back to the hotel or I get on the plane of a long drive, and I just think, Lord, what the hell am I doing? Because you feel like you're beating your head against the wall. And then you get kicked out of a diocese, told you're not allowed back, or some priest, or you get an email from somebody, like he was talking about, you're preaching hate, you know? And you start questioning, well, did I deliver this as good as I could? I mean, you don't want to mislead people's souls. But you know what? We got to engage in the fight. And that's not one of these moments. What it is simply saying that, yeah, I understand that it's hard and it's tough, and you're just trying to figure it out as you go along. But you know what? This message is serious. The times are serious. And we got to rise up like we have never risen up before. It's on us now. Just like when I mentioned last night the Knights of Malta and those men who fought and died on Malta to preserve the faith in Europe at that time, this is our time. Now, we don't know if it's going to be a physical battle. It may become that, like it was in Rwanda, like it was in World War II, and many other places. But we do know it's a spiritual battle, and we do know that it's on our shoulders as husbands and fathers, as men, to climb mountains, to blow holes through mountains, to accomplish the mission, to stay on mission. And that is to make sure we do everything we can with every fiber of our being, body, mind, and soul, to be warrior-minded and engage in the fight, to be aware of the battle, prepare for the battle, and engage in the battle. Those are 3 points we came up with for Battle Ready. Aware of the battle, prepare for the battle, and engage in the battle. 3 main points. And gentlemen, on all cylinders, we need to be clicking. Now, one more thing. I know I'm over time. I'm going to say this and then I'm done. Gentlemen, as a Catholic man, I want to be able to look at you all, and I want to be able to say, this is more of a heartfelt point here. I want to have confidence in you. I want to have confidence that if something happens to me in my life, heaven forbid something happens and I can't be there for my wife and kids, I want to have confidence that they end up in your care for whatever reason. You're the type of Catholic man that will not only pray for them, defend them in the faith, but even physically defend them. I want to know that you're that kind of man. And I want you to know that I want to be that kind of man if it ever happens and your family's in my care. Now think about that. If we were those kind of Catholic men, and we knew that the number one thing we were concerned about was that moral fiber that made us good, holy, strong men, moral, spiritual men, and physically capable men, and we knew we had each other's backs, and we'd watch out for each other's families, what kind of society would we have? What kind of community would we have as Catholic men? Now, I'm not the only one who in my heart feels that kind of, yeah, when I say those words. I'm sure some of you are thinking that right now. Because I tell you, it's lonely in the world right now when it comes to really feeling like you can count on someone entirely to care for your most precious gifts, your family. We need to know we can count on each other. My next talk's going to address some of those things and what we do to prepare and the communication we need to have with one another, because I wholeheartedly say this. Something could happen tomorrow, could happen today. Aren't you just kind of waiting for the next something, the next Las Vegas attack, the next missile to be lobbed over Japan, and all of a sudden it misses and hits Japan, and then we're on. Okay, whatever may happen, we don't know when or how it could happen, but we're just thinking something might happen. We don't have time to waste to kind of sit around and dilly-dally about whether or not we should get involved or not in these elements of the battle. We've got to step it up now. And part of that is communicating with one another as true Catholic brothers, as true Catholic men that say, I got your back, I want you to have my back, I'll protect your family, you protect my family. Let's do everything we can to get everybody to heaven, and when it comes to physical pain, suffering in this world, to protect against it and alleviate as much as possible, that we're men who are prepared on every level to stay on mission, the mission that the Blessed Mother has given us. God bless you guys.